Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Look, we're all seeing how digital tech and AI are just, well, everywhere now, deeper in our lives every day. But have you really stopped to think about what might be going on behind the scenes? The hidden forces shaping what you actually see online?
hmm
Okay, let's unpack this. So today, we're doing a deep dive into some really fascinating, maybe even a bit provocative documents. They're by an author, Guy Lakeman. He talks about this thing he calls the internet coma. The basic idea is that maybe our online world isn't as human as we think. Maybe it's more manipulated. Our mission here is just to pull out the key ideas from what he's written, focus only on his claims, so you can get a handle on his perspective.
Exactly. So the sources we're looking at are a few articles and this one specific diagram he created. They definitely offer a strong opinion, very opinionated, but also quite a detailed view on, the internet and AI right now. And just to be clear, we're here to unpack his claims, his observations. We're not saying we agree or disagree, just laying out his argument for you.
Absolutely. Think of this as a crucial look at how information moves around and gets shaped online. It might make you think a bit differently about your own daily scrolling. Here's where it gets really interesting. Okay, so first up, this internet coma. What exactly is he talking about? He mentioned something he calls content death.
hmm
Notice that starting around 2016, he says, and then it really ramped up during the COVID years. He connects it directly to how much we're all on our phones.
Right. And he goes further. He claims algorithms are pushing, well, what he calls junk, just junk content. And this is largely funded by advertisers, he argues. He even says this contributes to less face-to-face social interaction in actual neighborhoods. He blames a fear induced by close interaction caused by extremist racial, sexual, and religious dysfunctional legal actions. It's quite a statement. He basically describes algorithms as being like drug pushers, manipulating society, especially people he sees as weak-minded and just glued to their hand.
Yeah, that image he uses is powerful, isn't it? People not only wearing a mask, but wearing a phone glued to their hand. It really paints a picture of a big shift.
And that builds into this other idea, the source brings up the dead internet theory. That actually started floating around in 2016 too. Now in 2024, he says it refers to how much content you see that's made by, generative trained large language models, LLMs. He throws out some numbers too. Like back in 2016, apparently 52% of web traffic was already bots. And he says that number's only gone up, which in his view makes search engines pretty unreliable.
Unreliable.
Because of sponsorship influence algorithms. So the results are skewed by who's paying, not just what's relevant.
Okay, right. And he connects this to public opinion, too, saying it's what, falling below a majority? Because the viral stuff might just be bots clicking, not actual people. He brings up the 2000 NASDAQ crash as, like, proof that systems can be messed with.
Exactly. He argues that the LLM-generated content is specifically targeted to fill the pockets of the bot chat suppliers. And who supports them? The advertisers paying them. What worries him more, though, is he claims the AI training itself evolves. It learns from what works. And he thinks what works is increasingly stuff designed to create social dissent and even support for extremist lunacy groups.
Wow. So this drive for engagement and profit, like that internal Facebook memo showed, it has real consequences, according to Lakeman. This takes us to what he calls antisocial malpractice by social sites to maximize their profits. He points to that Facebook memo from August 2019, the one leaked in 2021, where they basically admitted, the mechanics of our platforms are not neutral, and that optimizing for engagement is essential for them.
Yes, and the memo's conclusion was pretty blunt, wasn't it? It found that hate, misinformation, and politics are really good for keeping people on the app. This feeds right into what people started calling algorithmic radicalization around 2019. The idea that these recommendation algorithms, just by trying to keep you clicking, can sort of accidentally push you towards more and more extreme stuff over time, like a feedback loop.
A rabbit hole, yeah. And then there's this inversion thing he mentions, specifically at YouTube. He claims their algorithms, the ones meant to catch fake views, somehow started treating fake as the default, and even mislabeling real views.
That's the claim.
And he also alleges YouTube doesn't filter plagiarism properly, promoting some stuff over others, even though they say algorithms help users find things. It sounds like he's saying profit trumps authenticity.
Yeah, and all this creates what are often called filter bubbles and echo chambers. That terminology became really common around 2020. He explains it as, the platforms learn what you like, so they tailor your feed. Which sounds helpful, but
But it means you mostly see stuff you already agree with, right?
Right. It reinforces your beliefs. You might ignore other views, and you end up in these polarized groups sharing the same story. It leads to confirmation bias. and misinformation can spread like wildfire in those environments. The National Library of Medicine has research touching on this too, the potential harms.
And Lakeman ties it all back to the money again, doesn't he? The greed-driven advertising marketeers using all that data.
Using the data to target specific groups, trying to sell them stuff they really don't need or want, as he puts it. He also points to some newer things to back this up, like Meta saying in early 2025 they'll supply self-trained biased AI accounts.
Self-trained biased accounts.
That's the phrase used in the source. And he mentions Reddit closing off its API in 2023 to people who don't pay. He argues that makes it impossible to filter content in an unbiased way for training AI. Oh, and the trend of offering virtual influencers to ad agencies for funding. Basically, AI personas pushing products.
Okay, so if all this is happening, what are the consequences Lakeman sees? He gets pretty controversial here, especially about language. He talks about the change in language with Generation Alpha speak and its internet chat shorthand dumbing the minds.
Yeah.
And then he makes this comparison to Rasta speak that evolved into childish rap nonsense. I mean, that's a really provocative comparison.
It is. And he follows it with this very stark division of people. He basically says there are the intellectuals who get the AI, who understand the machine higher intelligence, and they've embraced it. And then there's everyone else, the lower than 84% of humanity, he says, those with an IQ under 115, who don't have the ability to see what is happening.
Yeah.
And because they don't see it, they end up voting as one soggy lump. It's a very challenging claim about understanding and agency.
Wow, yeah. Very challenging. And he even quotes some thesis that claims, what was it? That the government is using AI for mass gaslighting.
An artificial intelligence-powered gaslighting of the entire world population. Yes, that's the quote he includes. And his critique extends really broadly. Mainstream news, politicians, journalists. He uses some incredibly harsh language, calling them filled to the brim with dysfunctional, moral, migrant reporters and presenters. He claims they cause miserable, demotivated brain death. Strong stuff.
Very strong.
And he hammers home this idea that filtered, bot-driven, AI-generated content is now the norm. It's mainstream, which leaves, in his words, real human responses out in the cold.
So for him, it really boils down to trust, doesn't it? He keeps coming back to that. It all comes down to trust, and trust is not built on belief, but on evidence and repeatable, observable evidence of action. That seems key to his whole argument.
Absolutely. Which leads him to ask this really fundamental question for all of us, I suppose. Where now do we get and knowledge, not only if it's through bias-filtered teaching at school or off the filtered mainstream garbage or off the chatbots, where does reliable information come from?
And his answer is pretty radical.
Extremely. He basically says, build your own chatbot. And don't trust any unknown spokesperson who isn't highly qualified in whatever they're talking about. He seems to genuinely believe that only those with a higher qualification can make comments on a topic to those who do not have that qualification. It's a very hierarchical view of knowledge.
And he warns about AI being corrupted,
Yeah.
right? Using another really intense comparison.
Yeah.
Like it could be perverted by advertising, filtering, and biased teaching, like some military indoctrinating religious suicide bomber training group. That's designed to shock, surely.
It certainly grabs your attention. But interestingly, he also says there is no need for censorship. He believes the truth comes out anyway, and he even brings up the Library of Alexandria as like proof that knowledge survives.
So what's his final recommendation then for chatbots specifically?
He says quite bluntly, it would be better if they added which advertisers were funding them, with the exclamation points.
Ah, okay.
His logic is, then we would definitely know where the society threat is coming from and who is distorting history with political garbage. And he includes that diagram we mentioned earlier. It visually shows how he thinks this works. The learning process, the feedback loops in the AI.
Right, the neural connections.
Exactly, and how external actors like advertisers or politicians can influence the AI owners with money, effectively infecting the system and biasing the output. It makes the invisible influence visible in his model.
Okay. So wrapping this up, what does it all mean? We've gone through some pretty unsettling stuff from Guy Lakeman's writings, this idea of internet coma, bots everywhere, algorithms with deep biases that he claims are shaping how we see everything, even how we talk. It's a lot to take in.
It really is. And the implications he draws are huge, aren't they, for how you find information, how you decide what to trust in a world that's increasingly driven by AI. His call for critical thinking, for demanding actual verifiable evidence, it certainly makes you pause and think, regardless of whether you agree with his specific conclusions or his strong language.
Definitely.
He really challenges you, the listener, to think about his ideas for navigating this online world. If trust really needs evidence and repeatable, observable evidence, like he says, what does that actually look like for you day to day? Especially in this world he describes, full of bots and hidden ad agendas. How do you even start to figure out, as he puts it, who is distorting history in what you read and watch? Maybe just asking that question, being aware that the distortion might be happening, is the first step, something to think about.